I didn't say a word when the HOA president slammed the violation notice on the table, her voice sharp enough to draw stares from the handful of neighbors who had bothered to show up. She called my solar panels unauthorized structures and warned me about daily compounding fines. I simply slid a folder across the table, the county seal embossed in gold on the front. She didn't even open it before scoffing, but her lawyer did. I saw his eyes scan the first page, then the second. His jaw tightened, his face paling almost comically. Ow. By the third page, his hand was on her arm, and his voice was a whisper she clearly didn't appreciate.
Right.
Something, but he didn't stop. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch, the weight of what I'd just handed them settling in like a slow, heavy fog. When I bought the place, I wasn't looking for a fight with anybody. I'd been working in municipal energy planning for over 20 years, the last 15 in the same county. I knew every road, every easement, every piece of infrastructure like the back of my hand. But after decades of drafting ordinances and sitting through endless public hearings, I wanted out. I found a quiet place on the far edge of a subdivision that had been swallowed by an HOA, sometime in the early 2000s. My lot backed up to a wide belt of county-owned green space, so it felt like I had breathing room. The house itself wasn't. Special, a 2-story with fading paint and a roof that needed work, but it was mine. In the sunlight across the backyard and the late afternoons made me think about finally putting up those solar panels I'd been promising myself for years. I wanted peace, a garden, maybe a few good years without committees and procedural nonsense. For the first few months, it was exactly that. I'd go into town for groceries, wave to a few neighbors, come home, and tinker with the yard. No drama. No politics. Just the sound of wind through the trees. I thought maybe I'd finally found a place where the endless rulemaking didn't reach. That illusion lasted until the first letter from the HOA landed in my mailbox. Unauthorized modification. To property facade, it read. I had to reread it twice before I realized they were talking about the new panels I'd just had installed on the roof. 6 high-efficiency, county-approved panels, mounted by a licensed contractor with permits filed and cleared. Oh. Not yet. Just confused. I figured it was a clerical mistake. These people probably didn't know the county had updated the solar installation rules 2 years ago. I drafted a polite email explaining that the panels met all state energy guidelines and that the county ordinance explicitly prohibited HOAs from banning them. I attached the ordinance itself with the relevant sections highlighted. I even offered to show them the permits in person. They didn't reply to the email. Instead, I found a bright orange violation notice taped to my front door the next week. This time it cited failure to comply with architectural standards and warned that fines would begin accruing at $100 a day. My neighbors, the same ones who used to wave, started avoiding eye contact. The few who spoke to me suggested I just take them down before things got worse. It was absurd. The ordinance I'd written with my own hands was designed specifically to prevent this kind of nonsense. Back when we drafted it, we'd been dealing with HOAs all over the county trying to block renewable energy projects. I had stood in the county courthouse in front of the planning board, explaining in plain language that state law gave homeowners the right to install panels so long as they met code. That language was now county law. I knew it better than anyone, because I'd been the one to type the final draft. Still, I tried to handle it gently. I called the HOA office. No answer.
I left voicemails.
No reply. I sent certified letters, citing the exact subsection of the ordinance that stripped them of any authority over renewable energy installations. The only response I got was a new fine schedule in the mail. The daily penalty doubled. That's when the temperature inside me shifted. Not rage, something colder, heavier. Stopped sending polite letters. I started keeping a file. Notice every envelope, every voicemail. I took photos of my panels from every angle. I pulled up the county's official permit database and printed copies of my approved application. I even dug out the original drafting notes from the ordinance. Committee, complete with my handwritten annotations in the margins. And then, for good measure, I requested the HOA's bylaws from the county records office, because I already knew something they clearly didn't. Their rules couldn't contradict county law. Over the next few weeks, I built a case so airtight, you could have stored oxygen in it. I documented how the HOA had issued fines without legal standing, how they had failed to respond to certified communications, and how their notices contained language explicitly prohibited by county ordinance. I even tracked the dates and times their so-called compliance officer stepped onto my property without permission to photograph the panels, a small but meaningful trespass under state law. By the time the next HOA board meeting rolled around, I was ready, which brought me back to that folding table in the echoing community hall. I waited until they got to my violations on the agenda. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply opened my folder and slid it toward their council. The first document in the stack was my signed and stamped installation permit. Behind it was a copy of the county ordinance, the one I'd authored, with the relevant clause highlighted: no HOA or similar body may prohibit, restrict, or otherwise impede the installation of renewable energy systems compliant with County Building Code. The next page was the official record of the ordinance vote from the county archives, with my name listed under prepared by. The final page was a formal demand for rescission of all fines, citing statute and precedent. Their lawyer didn't even make it halfway through before whispering urgently to the president. Her face flushed a deep red as she tried to bluster her way through, but she knew it was over. The ordinance was law, and I was its architect. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. Within a week, the fines were voided. 2 board members resigned, citing health reasons. The president stopped attending meetings for several months. Word must have gotten around because nobody else from the HOA ever so much as looked at my panels again. The neighbors who had once avoided me went back to nodding from their driveways, though a few still looked like they were trying to figure out what exactly had happened that night. I didn't bother explaining. I'd had my fill of public hearings. Years ago now, when I sit on my back porch in the late afternoon, the panels catch the sun and throw a warm glow across the yard. The power bill is practically non-existent, and the house hums with the quiet satisfaction of knowing the fight is over. They can wave when I drive by, or they can turn away. It's quiet again. That's all I ever wanted.